Good morning, aspirants. It's 25th of November today, and I welcome you all on today's edition of What to Read in the Hindu newspaper. I'm 𝗗𝗶𝗹𝘆 𝗡𝗲, Senior Mentor at Prepp IAS. While going through the articles, we will not only see its relevance with regard to prelims and mains, but we'll also try interlinking it with other GS papers as well. Today's paper has a lot of interesting articles that has a direct linkage with our exams perspective. So let's get started. The very first article that is there in the paper and that catches our attention is about labor and honor. So when we map this particular article in our syllabus, this will fall under GS paper 3, economy, employment, inclusive growth and industrial relations. Also relevant for GS paper 2, wherein welfare schemes, social security and federalisms can be linked. Also, this could be an aspect for GS paper 1 as well, wherein population and demographic with particular reference to youth bulge can be quoted. So for prelims perspective, this article is to be seen through the lens of the 4 labor codes that will be implemented, replacing 29 labor laws, which leads to revamping and compliance and employer-employee relationship shall be looked into forward. Afterwards, India's labor conference, knowing about the numbers, for example, 12 million every year working age population is added in our economy. So keeping that in mind, we need to generate almost approximately 78 lakhs jobs annually. So this is how this particular article is to be seen. Also, this is very much relevant for our mains paper as well, wherein impact of industrial relations, knowing about gig platforms, its positives and negatives both. Social security could be an angle wherein discussion with respect to gig platforms can be quoted. Center-state coordination in labor reforms, which is needed, and also labor as a topic, labor reforms, whether it falls under union list or state list, you got to tell me. Need for a tripartite governance model that should be done, and overall, this can even be quoted as an example for GS4 as well, wherein we can take several best practices from the world as well. So this is how this particular article is to be seen from the lens of different paper, different aspects. Moving on, the next important article that is there in the paper and that catches our attention is about the amplitude of gubernatorial discretion. So this is relevant with regard to GS paper 2, wherein polity, federalism, governor's power and separation of power has been highlighted. Also, the role of judiciary under Article 143 that talks about advisory jurisdiction or advisory opinion has been discussed. The key theme that has been discussed about is the Supreme Court in an advisory opinion addresses governor has discretion in assenting, withholding and returning the bill, whether they have it or not. Should there be timelines for governor and president to act on a bill? Afterwards, for prelims perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of Article 200, 201, 143, 356. All these context and its relevance needs to be revised. The recommendation of Sarkaria and Poonchi commissions, anti-defection law, why Supreme Court often says ministerial advice is predictable. Afterwards, from mains perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of governor versus elected government friction that has always been in the case when it comes to opposition parties ruled state, judicial review of gubernatorial inactions, need for time-bound procedure under Article 200, cooperative federalisms. This is how this particular article is to be holistically seen. The next important article that is there in the paper and is relevant for our exam is about society must reclaim respectful and open dialogue. Relevant for GS paper 2 under the theme governance, role of civil society. Also important for GS paper 1, social conflict and communications, and GS paper 4 as well, wherein ethics under the theme tolerance, dialogue, and usage of emotional intelligence can be linked. So for prelims perspective, we got to know about the concepts such as homophily, polarizations, role of media, freedom of speech, and constitutional articles dealing with it. For mains perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of social cohesion and democracy, public reasons and deliberate democracy, impact of polarization on institutions which got influenced in the form of legislature, judiciary, and bureaucracy at times, and also restoring civil discourse and neutrality in the time of polarization altogether. So this is how this particular article is to be seen. The next important article is Bridging India's Numeracy Gap. When we map this particular article in our syllabus, this will fall under GS Paper 2, Education, Human Resource Development. Also relevant for GS Paper 3, wherein inclusive growth with respect to imparting of education and skill impartation can be linked, and also demographic dividend can be a direct symmetry with this particular article. So the key theme that has been discussed over here is, despite improvement under Nipun Bharat that we have seen, numeracy lags literacy significantly. The case in point could be ESSER report always highlight only 30% of class 5 student can solve division, right? Numeracy is actually cumulative in nature, and there has been misconceptions with regard to it. Also, the key analogy that can be established by reading this particular article could be, real world learning is not equivalent to classroom maths that has been emphasized upon. So for prelims perspective, we need to know about the recent data and fact of ESSER, which was of 2024 Nipun Bharat scheme. Its objective launched under which ministry? Teaching at right level. Parakh portal of NEP. This can be interlinked. For mains perspective, we need to know about numeracy crisis that leads to dropout, and that even leads to board exam failure and increasing dropout rate in the classrooms as well. Afterwards, what are fraction, decimals, ratios, why they needs to be taught, need to extend intervention to class a bare minimum of at least till 8, linking classroom learning with real life task could be an important aspect while going through this particular article. And this is how this article is to be seen. Now the next very important article that is there in the paper and is being discussed under text and context, which talks about what does the Supreme Court's advisory opinion imply. So when we go through this particular article, it majorly falls under GS Paper 2 under the theme Polity and Constitution, wherein judiciary, constitutional interpretation, and separation of power has been highlighted. The key theme that has been talked in this particular article is about Supreme Court's advisory jurisdiction under Article 143 and its implication for center-state dynamics and constitutional clarity that is needed, right? For prelims perspective, the areas that we have to unfold and have to brush up our knowledge is on knowing about Article 143, what is advisory jurisdictions, the domains wherein advisory jurisdictions applicable, binding versus non-binding nature debate, past references made by president, constitutional interpretation basics. For mains perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of discussing how advisory jurisdiction shapes governance, role of judiciary in constitutional clarity, executive judiciary balance that is needed, impact on federalism. Also, an important angle that deals with judicial review, constitutional morality, and doctrine of separation of power. All these arenas are to be read and revised while going through this particular article, right? The next important article is about Justice Surya Kant took oath as 53rd CJI of India. So not merely the fact, but the process of how the appointment, removal of judiciary, that too of Supreme Court, is to be read and revised. So this is relevant for GS paper 2 in judiciary, where the structure, appointment, independence of judiciary is to be read and revised. The key theme that has been discussed over here is judicial leadership transitions and role of CJI in strengthening institutional reforms. For prelims perspective, the arenas that we have to quickly revise is about appointment of CJI under Article 124, what is collegium system and its basics, order of seniority conventions, tenure of CJI, whether reappointment is possible or not. Afterwards, for mains perspective, we need to know judicial reforms agenda for new CJI, pendency reduction, collegium transparency, administrative power of CJI, way forward for judicial modernization, that is e-court and AI tools could be integrated to lessen the burden of judiciary that is there. So this is how this particular article is to be read and revised. So the focus now majorly shifts towards reforms. उसके बाद में faster justice delivery, better judicial appointment, and strengthening citizens' trust in institutions altogether. The next important article that is there in the paper and is relevant for our exam is about Gavi, UNICEF Inc. deal to provide easy access to malaria vaccine, relevant for GS paper 2 social justice, health, human resource indicators can be linked, also relevant for GS paper 3 science and tech and environment, and in specific to vaccine innovation. The key theme that has been discussed over here is global health partnership to boost malaria vaccine development, which is critical for Africa and South Asia. For prelims perspective, we need to know about malaria as a disease, its vector, transmission, malaria vaccine that has been developed, a medicine to it, what is Gavi, UNICEF roles, malaria endemic zones, global health institutions. For mains perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of vaccine equity and global cooperations, challenges in malaria eradications, role of international organization in public health, and India's position with respect to manufacturing, supply chain, and diplomacy. As we have seen during the time of COVID, vaccine diplomacy was foremost from India's perspective. So this can even be helpful with regard to dealing with endemic diseases such as malaria as well. The next important article that is there in the paper and is relevant is about Navy gets silent hunter, 80% homegrown Mahe. Relevant for GS paper 3, defense, security and indigenization of technology. The key theme that has been discussed over here is strengthening naval capacity with indigenous and shallow watercraft named as Mahe that has high stealth and surveillance capacity. For prelims perspective, we need to know silent hunter platform, indigenous defense manufacturing schemes launched by government, key naval commands and strategic priorities, basics of modern naval platforms. For May's perspective, the same article is to be seen through the lens of India's defense indigenization push, maritime security in Indian Ocean region, what is blue water navy, and whether India is considered to be blue water navy or not. Apart from India, which all countries' navy has been considered as blue water navy. Afterwards, impact of indigenization on shipbuilding and Atmanirbhar Bharat as well. This is how this particular article is to be seen. And the last very important article for the day is out. India braces for disruption of air travel after Ethiopia's Hayli Gubbi volcano erupts. So this particular article is very much important for GS paper 1 geography, wherein volcanism as a phenomena can be completely revised. Also relevant for GS paper 3 disaster management, economy and impact on trade and transport as well. So primarily we need to know about what is volcano eruption that impacts the area surrounding it, knowing about Ethiopia's, its geography and the surrounding countries, type of volcano, what is air corridor mapping, volcanic ash comprises of which all components, jet stream patterns, etc. this is how this particular article is to be seen. This is all from my end for today's Hindu newspaper. Till we meet for the next time, take care, goodbye, keep learning, keep growing.